even though we are, in all likelihood, transitioning out of an age of ignorance into an age of enlightenment, over the past 100+ years, in an attempt, a largely futile attempt, to cope with even not even completely being conscious of being in an age of ignorance, not just talking about individuals, but the world. There have been attempts in the academic and the philosophical and the psychological communities to analyze and to itemize the different weaknesses and flaws and neuroses of humans. Sometimes in an attempt to better treat them, address them. Other times, because it is the nature of academia to try to understand everything, the relative details of everything, at the loss of understanding the underlying causes in consciousness.
And do you think that that also has to do with us on a daily basis, that we judge? Is that why we judge
Well, an
others?
extremely valuable quality of human nature is discernment or discrimination, not discrimination in terms of racial or segregation and all that stuff, but having the ability to discriminate, to discern something is desirable, something is inherently good, something is undesirable, something is inherently not good. And then you get the further unfortunate judgments within that which is not good is then labeled as bad or evil. And you start to transition or blur the lines between intellectual understanding and religious perspectives. So it's important to discern and discriminate.
Which is, would that be like a self-preservation trait in us?
In an age of ignorance, it's extremely that, and it's how our most primeval survival instincts kick in. But we're further than that now, even though we have many of those traits deep in our brain physiology still. It's what we have grown into naturally putting emphasis on. And then, of course, we have habits and patterns where we are reinforcing some negative patterns by not being awake enough, God forbid we say woke enough, to choose the intention of favoring the positive. The more we grow in consciousness, the more we naturally favor the positive. But it's helpful to choose that as well. And then it starts to cultivate those neural pathways. And there's now some evidence that even the heart acts like a brain or a mind where it has intelligence. And so to cultivate those neural pathways and heart pathways, we are increasingly spontaneously favoring the positive. That's indicative of growth of consciousness.
Yeah. My father told me when I was a child that if I ever had the doubt, to follow my heart.
Yes.
Because if I act through my heart, I will not regret later.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, to me, not to get overly political in this, but that to me reflects a personal awareness I've had over the past several years, where I had a lot of difficulty voting for the status quo in terms of presidential candidates. And I embraced the argument, or the, so to speak, logic, that the lesser of two evils is still evil. What I've grown to now see and believe is that the lesser of two evils in a flawed Kali Yuga, age of ignorance culture and society, the lesser of two evils is less evil. And so in a Kali Yuga time, an age of ignorance time in the history of the world, it's so important to favor that which is less evil, or find that which is more good.
Yeah. Some people believe we're already in the new age of Aquarius. Would that be like the same as the age of enlightenment? We're already there, we're almost there, we don't know why we're in between. Is it blurry?
Yeah, my understanding, and there's all sorts of interpretations, is that we have recently, I don't know the years, and depending on who you subscribe to astrologically and prophecy-wise, it varies in which years, but we have recently begun the transition time between an age of ignorance to an age of enlightenment in terms of global consciousness. And of course, when you're much more familiar with a darker way of living more in darkness, that it is difficult to say the sun is coming up, especially when there are still a lot of clouds on the horizon. And I think it's easy to convince oneself that we are not in an age of enlightenment or coming to that, when the habitual experience and the somewhat potentially accurate perception is that there's a lot of still dark clouds in the sky.
But you think it's already started then?
Yes.
Getting out of it?
Yes. How long it will take to fully
We'll never see.
realize, it could be a few years or a few decades or who knows. And we still have choices that could either slow things down or speed things up.